The galaxy had moved on. 10 years was a long time for most species. Empires rose and fell. Trade routes changed. Wars were fought and forgotten. But some things stayed the same. The Galactic Council still ruled from their massive station at the center of known space. The Valari still looked down on every other species with their 4 cold eyes. The Kreth still demanded tribute from smaller civilizations, and humanity was still considered the youngest and weakest member of the galactic community. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the observation deck of the council station, watching ships come and go through the massive viewport. She was tired. 10 years of fighting for scraps at the diplomatic table had worn her down. Humanity had joined the galactic community with such hope. They had dreamed of exploration, of friendship, of learning from species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Instead, they found a galaxy that treated them like children at best and slaves at worst. "You seem troubled, human," a voice said behind her. She turned to find High Counselor Vexnar of the Valari standing there. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with blue-gray skin and those famous 4 eyes that could see in every spectrum of light. His robes were made of living fabric that shifted colors based on his mood. Right now, they were a condescending purple. "Just thinking about the past," Chen Wei said carefully. She had learned to guard her words around the Valari. "Ah, yes. The anniversary approaches, does it not?" Vexnar's thin lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a human face. 10 years since the Odyssey disappeared. Such a tragedy for your young species." Chen Wei felt her jaw tighten. The Odyssey, Earth's most advanced ship, their pride and joy. It had been sent on a deep exploration mission to the edge of known space. 3,000 of humanity's best scientists, engineers, and soldiers. They had passed through the void boundary, that mysterious wall of energy that separated known space from the unknown regions beyond. And they had never returned. "We remember our lost," Chen Wei said simply. "Of course you do," Vexnar said. "It is admirable how your species clings to hope, even after 10 years, even when the void boundary has never allowed anyone to return." He paused, clearly enjoying her discomfort. "But perhaps it is time to accept reality. The Odyssey is gone. Those 3,000 souls are gone. And humanity must focus on its place here, in the civilized galaxy." Chen Wei knew what he meant. Humanity's place, at the bottom, paying taxes to the Kreth, following rules made by the Valari, watching as other species took the best colony worlds while humans were given the scraps. "Thank you for your wisdom, High Counselor," she said, keeping her voice neutral. Vexnar nodded and walked away, his robes shifting to a satisfied gold color. Chen Wei watched him go and felt something cold settle in her chest. It was not sadness anymore. That had faded years ago. What remained was something harder, something that whispered that humanity deserved better, that one day things would change. She just did not know how right she was. 300 light-years away, at the edge of the void boundary, something was happening that had not happened in recorded galactic history. The wall of swirling purple energy that had blocked all exploration for millions of years was opening. Not cracking or breaking. Opening. Like a door that had been waiting for the right key. A Kreth patrol ship was the first to see it. Commander Throck was running a routine scan of the boundary when his sensors went crazy. Energy readings spiked so high that 3 of his instruments burned out. His crew scrambled to understand what was happening. "Commander!" his sensor officer shouted. "Something is coming through!" Throck watched his screen with all 6 of his eyes. The Kreth were a warrior species, bred for battle over countless generations. They feared nothing. But as he watched the void boundary open wider and wider, he felt something he had not felt since he was a hatchling. Fear. "What is it?" he demanded. "What do you see?" "A ship, Commander. One ship. But the readings This cannot be right. Show me. The image appeared on the main screen, and Throck felt his blood turn cold. It was a ship unlike anything he had ever seen. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of his patrol vessel. Its hull was black, but not a natural black. It seemed to absorb light itself, making it hard to look at directly. Strange patterns glowed along its surface, geometric shapes that hurt his eyes if he looked too long. And at the front of the ship, carved into the hull in letters that burned with white fire, was a word. Odyssey. That is impossible, Throck whispered. That is a human ship. Humans do not have vessels like this. Humans do not have anything like this. Commander, the ship is hailing us. Throck straightened his shoulders. He was Kreth. He did not show fear. Put it through. The communication screen flickered, and a human face appeared. But something was different about this human. The eyes were wrong. They glowed with a faint golden light, and when the human smiled, there was something ancient in that expression, something that spoke of knowledge beyond understanding. Greetings, Kreth Vessel, the human said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. I am Captain Marcus Cole of the Terran ship Odyssey. We have been away for some time, 10 years by your calendar. He paused, and that strange smile widened. We have learned much in our absence. We have grown, and now we have returned. Throck found his voice. You will hold your position, human. You will submit to inspection and questioning. You are in Kreth-controlled space, and you will follow our laws. The human, Captain Cole, tilted his head slightly, like a predator studying prey. Kreth-controlled space, he repeated slowly. Yes, I remember. I remember many things. The tribute your people demanded from Earth. The colonies you took from us. The ships of ours you destroyed when we protested. His eyes flashed brighter. I remember all of it. You will comply or be destroyed, Throck said, but even he could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Destroyed? Captain Cole laughed. It was not a cruel laugh. It was almost sad. Commander, you have no idea what we encountered beyond the void, what we learned, what we became. He leaned forward. We went into the darkness as children. We return as something else entirely. And we are done being treated like lesser beings. The communication cut off. Throck immediately ordered his crew to battle stations. He sent out a distress call to the nearest Kreth fleet. He charged his weapons and raised his shields to maximum power. The Odyssey did not move. It simply hung there in space, that impossible ship with its light-drinking hull and burning letters. Throck targeted his weapons, ready to fire. He never got the chance. The Odyssey did not fire weapons. It did not launch missiles or use energy beams. Instead, something invisible reached out from the ship and touched the Kreth patrol vessel. Every system on Throck's ship shut down instantly. Engines, weapons, life support, everything just stopped. His crew floated in sudden zero gravity, gasping as the backup systems failed to activate. Captain Cole's voice came through on emergency frequencies, which should have been impossible with their systems down. We are not here to destroy you, Commander. We are here to deliver a message. Tell your leaders. Tell the Council. Tell everyone. His voice carried across the dead ship like the whisper of a coming storm. Humanity has returned, and the galaxy will never be the same. Then the Odyssey moved. Not flew, moved. One moment it was there, the next it was simply somewhere else, leaving behind a wake of distorted space that would take days to settle. Throck and his crew were left drifting in a dead ship, surrounded by silence. The message reached the Galactic Council within hours. Emergency sessions were called. The Valari demanded answers. The Kreth demanded war. A dozen other species demanded to know how a primitive human ship could disable a Kreth vessel without firing a single shot. Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the Great Hall of the Council, surrounded by chaos. Holographic displays showed the footage from Throck's ship before it went dark. The image of the Odyssey, the face of Captain Cole, the impossible reality of it all. High Counselor Vexenar approached her, and for the first time in 10 years, his robes were not a condescending color. They were gray, the color of fear. "What have your people done?" he demanded. "What is that ship? What happened beyond the void?" Chen Wei looked at the image of the Odyssey frozen on the display. She did not know the answers to his questions. She did not know what the ship had become or what the crew had experienced. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Everything was about to change. She looked at Vexenar and smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had allowed herself in years. "I do not know what they found out there," she said, "but I think you are about to find out. Across the galaxy, on 100 worlds and 1,000 stations, beings of every species watched the footage of the Odyssey's return. They saw the ship that had swallowed light. They heard Captain Cole's words, and they felt, perhaps for the first time, what humanity had felt for 10 long years: the cold grip of uncertainty, the realization that power they had taken for granted might not be as absolute as they believed. On Earth, in the United Terran government's headquarters, officials gathered in stunned silence. President Rivera stood before a screen showing the Odyssey's image, tears streaming down her face. 3,000 people, their brightest and best, lost and mourned and given up for dead, and now returned. "Get me a communication channel," she ordered. "I do not care what it takes. Find the Odyssey. Find Captain Cole. Find out what happened to our people." No one knew yet where the Odyssey had gone after leaving the Kreth patrol ship. It had simply vanished again, moving through space in ways that should have been impossible. But one thing was certain: the Terran ship had returned, and it carried with it the seeds of a revolution that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The question was not whether that revolution would come. The question was whether anyone would be ready for it when it did. In the darkness between stars, the Odyssey traveled on. Inside its transformed halls, Captain Marcus Cole stood on the bridge, looking out at the galaxy he had left behind 10 years ago. His golden eyes saw more than light and darkness now. They saw the threads of possibility, the paths of potential futures. And in almost every path, he saw the same thing: fire, change, and humanity finally taking its rightful place among the stars. "We are almost home," he said to himself, "but first we have work to do." The ship hummed around him, alive in ways no one in the known galaxy would understand. Not yet. But they would learn. They would all learn. Humanity had evolved, and the galaxy would never be the same again. 2 weeks passed since the Odyssey's appearance at the void boundary. In that time, the galaxy had descended into barely controlled panic. The Kreth demanded immediate military action against the returned human vessel. The Valari called emergency council sessions every day, trying to gather information about what had happened beyond the void. Smaller species watched and waited, sensing that the balance of power they had lived under for centuries might be shifting. Ambassador Chen Wei had become the most important person in the diplomatic community overnight. Every species wanted to talk to her. Every leader wanted to know what humanity knew about the Odyssey. She told them the truth. Humanity knew nothing. The ship had not made contact with Earth since its return. It had simply appeared, delivered its message, and vanished again into the depths of space. But humanity was searching. Every telescope, every sensor array, every ship capable of long-range scanning was looking for the Odyssey. They needed answers. They needed to understand what had happened to their people. The answer came not from Earth's searching, but from a distress call. The Valari colony world of Thessar Prime was one of the jewels of the galactic civilization. 40 billion beings lived there, making it one of the most populated planets outside the core systems. It was also one of the most heavily defended, with orbital platforms, defense fleets, and ground-based weapons capable of fighting off any invasion. None of that mattered when the Harvesters came. No one knew where the Harvesters originated. They had appeared in the galaxy long before recorded history, massive biological ships that traveled between stars and consumed everything in their path. For millions of years, they had been dormant, their breeding grounds destroyed by ancient civilizations that no longer existed. But somehow, something had awakened them. The first wave arrived at Thessar Prime without warning, 30 organic vessels, each the size of a small moon, dropping out of hyperspace directly above the planet. The Valari defense fleet engaged immediately, but their weapons barely scratched the living hulls of the Harvesters. Within hours, millions of smaller creatures were dropping through the atmosphere, designed for one purpose only: to consume biomass and return it to the motherships. High Counselor Vexinar received the news while in a meeting with the other council members. His 4 eyes went wide, and his robes shifted to white, the Valari color of absolute terror. "How many Harvesters?" he demanded. 30 confirmed, his aide reported. "More are appearing at the edge of the system. Our fleet is being overwhelmed. Casualties are already in the millions." The council chamber erupted in chaos. The Harvesters were a nightmare from ancient legends. Most species believed they were extinct, or at least permanently dormant. To see them active again, attacking one of the most important worlds in the galaxy, was unthinkable. "We must send reinforcements," Counselor Kresh of the Kreth declared. "The combined might of all our fleets." "There is no time," Vexinar said, his voice hollow. "Even if we could assemble such a force, it would take weeks to reach Thessar Prime. The planet will be stripped bare in days." Ambassador Chen Wei watched this exchange in silence. She felt genuine sympathy for the Valari, despite their treatment of humanity over the years. No species deserved what the Harvesters did to their victims. But she also felt helpless. What could humanity do? Their ships were primitive by galactic standards. Their weapons were considered barely better than rocks and sticks. Then her communication device buzzed with a priority message from Earth. She stepped out of the chamber to take the call. "Ambassador," President Rivera said, her face filling the small screen. "We have found the Odyssey. It has been monitoring galactic communications. It knows about Thessar Prime." Chen Wei's heart raced. "What are they doing?" "They are en route, full speed toward the Valari colony world." The president paused, and Chen Wei saw something in her expression that had been missing for 10 years. Hope. "Captain Cole sent a message directly to us. He said humanity stands with all who face destruction, even those who treated us poorly." Back in the council chamber, alarms began sounding. Vexinar checked his display and froze completely still. "A ship has just entered the Thessar Prime system," he announced. It is the Odyssey." Every screen in the chamber switched to show the live feed from Valari defense satellites. The Odyssey emerged from a tear in space, its dark hull standing out against the stars. It was tiny compared to the Harvesters, a pebble facing mountains. The organic ships barely acknowledged it, continuing their assault on the planet below. "They are insane," Counselor Kresh said. "One ship against 30 Harvesters? They will be destroyed in moments." But the Odyssey did not attack. Not immediately. Instead, it moved to a position directly between the Harvesters and the planet. And then, Captain Cole opened a communication channel to everyone, to the Council, to the Defense Fleet, to the billions of terrified beings on the planet below. "People of Thessar Prime," his voice came through calm and steady. "This is Captain Marcus Cole of the Terran ship Odyssey. We know we have not been friends. We know you have looked down on humanity since we joined the galactic community. But we did not cross the void and return changed just to watch innocents die." His golden eyes seemed to look directly through the screen. Today, you will see what humanity has become. Today, you will understand why we say we are ready to challenge the galaxy, not to dominate it, but to protect it. The Odyssey began to change. Its black hull rippled like water. New structures emerged from within, unfolding like dark flowers. The geometric patterns that covered the ship blazed with light. Not just white anymore, but every color imaginable, and some that had no names. The ship grew larger, not by adding mass, but by somehow stretching space itself around it. In moments, it was no longer a single vessel, but something else. A network. A web of energy and matter that spread across thousands of kilometers. The council watched in stunned silence. This was technology beyond anything they had ever seen, beyond anything they had ever imagined. "What are they?" Vexnar whispered. No one had an answer. The first harvester changed course to attack the Odyssey. It was the largest of the organic ships, 3 times the mass of the others, covered in weapons that had destroyed civilizations. It opened fire with everything it had. The attacks did not reach the Odyssey. They simply stopped in space, suspended in a field of golden light that appeared around the Terran ship. Then the attacks reversed direction, flying back at the harvester with 100 times their original force. The organic hull ruptured in a dozen places. Black ichor spilled into the vacuum. But the Odyssey was not finished. From the web of energy it had created came beams of light that defied physics. They did not burn or explode. They unraveled. The wounded harvester began coming apart at the molecular level, its cells separating and dispersing as if they had forgotten how to hold together. In 30 seconds, a moon-sized creature was reduced to a cloud of harmless organic particles. The remaining harvesters stopped their attack on Thessar Prime. For the first time in millions of years, their ancient programming encountered something it did not understand. Prey that fought back. Prey that could hurt them. Prey that made them feel something they had no name for. Fear. They turned their attention to the Odyssey, all of them together. 29 massive creatures against one transformed ship. They attacked from every angle, using weapons that had been refined over cosmic ages. They launched swarms of smaller creatures designed to overwhelm and consume. They released clouds of acid that could eat through any known material. The Odyssey faced them all. Captain Cole stood on his bridge, connected to his ship in ways that went beyond physical control. He felt the attacks coming. He felt his crew, all 3,000 of them, lending their evolved minds to the defense. They were not just humans anymore. They were something new, something that had touched the intelligence that lived beyond the void and had been changed by that contact. "Show them," Cole said quietly. "Show them what we learned in the darkness." The Odyssey answered. Light erupted across the Thessar Prime system. Not random light, but structured, purposeful. Each beam found a harvester and began the same process of unraveling. The organic ships tried to flee, their ancient survival instincts finally overriding their hunger. But there was no escape. The Odyssey was not just one ship anymore. It was everywhere and nowhere, existing in multiple points in space simultaneously. One by one, the harvesters fell. Their screams, transmitted on frequencies no one knew existed, echoed across the galaxy. It was the sound of apex predators discovering they were no longer at the top of the food chain. When it was over, the space around Thessar Prime was filled with nothing but harmless organic dust. The Odyssey had destroyed 29 harvesters without taking a single point of damage, without losing a single crew member, without breaking a sweat. The ship reformed, pulling its extended web back into its original shape. It hung in space, dark and silent, as the Valari fleet and the planet below tried to process what they had just witnessed. Captain Cole opened a channel again. "The threat has been neutralized," he said simply. Your people are safe. High Counselor Vexnar, still watching from the council chamber light years away, found his voice. Captain Cole. What? What are you? What did you find beyond the void? Cole smiled that ancient smile. We found the truth, High Counselor. The truth about this galaxy, about the species that came before you, about the real threats that lurk in the spaces between stars. He paused. The harvesters are just the beginning. They woke up because something else is coming, something that makes them look like insects. What is coming? Vexnar demanded. Tell us! In time, Cole said. But first, I think we need to have a conversation, a real conversation, not one where humanity begs for scraps at your table, but one between equals. His golden eyes hardened. We saved Thessar Prime today. We could have let it burn. After everything your people have done to mine, we would have been justified in looking the other way. But we did not. Do you know why? No one answered. Because we are better than that, Cole said. Because when we touched the intelligence beyond the void, it showed us what truly matters. Not power over others, not dominance or tribute or territory. What matters is standing together against the darkness. All of us, as one. Ambassador Chen Wei stepped back into the council chamber. All eyes turned to her. Velari, Kreth, Thesson, Molvar, representatives of 100 species, all looking at the human in their midst with new expressions on their faces. Not condescension, not contempt, not pity, respect. And behind that respect, fear. Chen Wei looked at the image of the Odyssey on the screen. Captain Cole was still there, waiting. She thought about the 10 years of humiliation, the colonies taken, the treaties broken, the 1,000 small cruelties visited upon her species. Then she thought about what the Odyssey had just done, what it could have done, and what it chose not to do. High Counselor Vexnar, she said, her voice clear and steady. I believe Captain Cole has requested a meeting. On behalf of the United Terran government, I suggest you accept. Vexnar looked at her. His robes were shifting through colors she had never seen before. Finally, they settled on something close to blue, the Velari color for humility. Yes, he said quietly. I believe we should. Tell Captain Cole that the Galactic Council will receive him, as an equal. Chen Wei nodded and turned to leave the chamber. As she walked, she could not help but smile. The galaxy was afraid of humanity now. They had seen what the Odyssey could do. They had witnessed power that made their greatest weapons look like toys, but Cole had not used that power to dominate or destroy. He had used it to save lives, to protect beings who had never shown humanity any kindness. That, perhaps more than the destruction of the harvesters, was what terrified the Council. Because enemies they understood, tyrants they understood, but a species that gained ultimate power and chose to use it for good. That was something entirely new, and new things were always the most frightening of all. Somewhere in the depths of space, far beyond the reach of any galactic sensor, something ancient stirred. It felt the death screams of its harvester children. It felt the presence of the Odyssey, that small ship that carried the mark of the void intelligence. It felt, for the first time in eons, something like curiosity. The humans had evolved faster than expected. They had returned from the void stronger than any species in galactic history. They were becoming a problem. But problems could be solved. In the darkness between galaxies, something began to move. Something old, something hungry, something that made the harvesters look like gentle pets. The true test was still coming, and humanity would need every ounce of its new power to survive what awakened next. 6 months had transformed the galaxy. The meeting between Captain Cole and the Galactic Council had resulted in treaties that would have been unthinkable a year before. Humanity was no longer a second-class species, forced to pay tribute and accept insults. They sat at the head table now, their voice carrying the same weight as the Valari and the Kreth. Some said it carried more weight because everyone remembered Thessar Prime. Everyone remembered what the Odyssey could do. But the Odyssey had not used its power to demand these changes. Captain Cole had simply explained what was coming, what had awakened in the void between galaxies, what the intelligence beyond the void boundary had warned him about during those 10 years of transformation. They were called the Architects by the beings who remembered them. Millions of years ago, they had seeded the galaxy with life. They had created the first species, guided evolution on countless worlds, and watched their children grow. But the Architects were not kind parents. They were farmers, and eventually farmers harvested their crops. Every few million years, when the galaxy had developed enough civilizations, when enough intelligence had emerged, the Architects returned. They consumed everything, not just biomass like the harvesters, but thought itself. Knowledge, memories, dreams. They fed on consciousness, draining the galaxy of every thinking being before retreating to their home in the intergalactic void to digest their feast. The last harvest had happened so long ago that even the legends had faded to nothing. The current galactic civilizations had no memory of it. They thought they were the first to reach the stars. They were wrong. And now the Architects were waking again, drawn by the death of their harvester scouts. Drawn by the signal of the Odyssey crossing back through the void boundary. Drawn by the scent of a galaxy ripe for harvest. Captain Cole had shared all of this with the Council. He had shown them evidence gathered from beyond the void, from the ancient intelligence that had transformed his ship and crew. The intelligence had been created by survivors of the previous harvest, beings who had hidden in the void itself rather than face extinction. They had waited millions of years for a species with the right potential to cross through. They had found humanity. "You were chosen," Cole had explained to the Council. "Not because you were the strongest or the wisest, but because you had something the other species lacked. Stubbornness, refusal to accept your place, a fire that would not go out, no matter how many times it was stomped upon." He had smiled at Ambassador Chen Wei. The intelligence needed a species that would fight even when fighting was hopeless. It found that in humanity. Now the galaxy was preparing for war, not against each other, but together, against an enemy that had destroyed countless civilizations before. The Odyssey's crew were sharing their knowledge, teaching the other species how to modify their ships and weapons. Not to the level of the Odyssey itself, that was impossible in the time they had, but enough to give them a chance. Admiral Chen Wei, promoted from her ambassador position to lead the combined galactic fleet, stood on the bridge of her new flagship. The UTSS Unity was humanity's second transformed vessel, built using knowledge shared by the Odyssey. It was smaller than Cole's ship, less powerful, but it could do things that would have seemed like magic a year ago. Around her hung the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Thousands of ships from every species, all modified with the new technology, all ready to fight for their survival. The Valari had contributed their fastest ships. The Kreth had brought their heaviest weapons. Dozens of other species had added whatever they could. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "the Odyssey is in position. Captain Cole reports all systems ready." Chen Wei nodded. "Tell him we are ready as well." The enemy had been tracked approaching for weeks now. The Architects did not use hyperspace or any form of faster-than-light travel that the galactic species understood. They simply moved through space in a way that folded distance, crossing light years in moments without apparent propulsion. There were 7 of them. 7 Architects. Each one was larger than planets. They did not look like ships or creatures or anything familiar. They were geometries made solid, impossible shapes that hurt to perceive directly. They existed in more dimensions than 3, and what the fleet could see was only the shadow they cast in normal space. The first one arrived at the edge of the system the fleet had chosen for their stand. A solar system with no habited planets, selected specifically because the battle would destroy everything within it. "Contact," Chen Wei announced. "All ships, prepare for engagement." The architect hung in space, studying them. Then it spoke. Not through radio or any form of communication technology, it spoke directly into the minds of every being in the fleet. "You are different than the others." The voice was cold and vast, like the space between stars given thought. Chen Wei felt her crew flinch. She forced herself to remain steady. "We are," she replied out loud, knowing somehow that it could hear her. "We are the species you should not have awakened." Amusing. The little ones always believe they are special. The little ones always believe they can resist the harvest. The other 6 architects arrived, surrounding the fleet in a sphere of impossible geometry. They made no hostile moves yet. They were curious, Chen Wei realized. They had never encountered resistance like this before. "Tell us, little ones, what makes you believe you are different?" The answer came not from Chen Wei, but from Captain Cole aboard the Odyssey. "Because we touch the void intelligence," he said, his voice somehow reaching across the mental link the architects had created. "Because we learned what you really are. Not gods, not farmers. You are parasites. Bloated ticks feeding on the consciousness of younger species because you long ago forgot how to create anything yourselves." The architects went silent. Then, for the first time in millions of years, they felt something they had almost forgotten existed. Anger. "How dare you? You are nothing, less than nothing. You exist only to feed us." Cole laughed. "Maybe once, but not anymore." The Odyssey began to transform again. But this time it was not alone. The Unity transformed beside it. Then the Valari flagship Eternal Light. Then the Kreth warship Destroyer of Worlds. Ship after ship across the fleet began to change, accessing power they had not known they possessed. The knowledge shared by the Odyssey had included dormant codes, waiting for this moment, waiting for the presence of the architects to unlock them. The fleet was not just modified, it was awakening. Chen Wei felt her consciousness expand beyond her physical body. She was connected to her crew, her ship, and through the transformed technology, to every other ship in the fleet. Millions of minds joined together, unified by the ancient intelligence that had prepared humanity for this moment. And she understood. The void intelligence had not just transformed the Odyssey. It had planted seeds. Seeds in every piece of technology humanity had shared with the galaxy. Seeds that would only grow when the architects arrived. Seeds that would turn the harvest into a trap. "Now," Cole said, "show them what we have become." The battle that followed would be remembered for as long as any species existed. 7 architects, beings that had consumed galaxies, faced a united fleet that fought as a single entity. The geometric horrors unleashed attacks that should have erased matter from existence. The fleet responded with weapons that had been designed specifically to harm beings like the architects, weapons based on knowledge millions of years old. Chen Wei directed the Unity and its battle group against the nearest architect. The creature tried to drain their consciousness, reaching into their minds to consume their thoughts. But the unified mind was too strong. Too many beings linked together, supporting each other, filling any gap that the architect tried to exploit. "Push back," Chen Wei ordered. The combined will of her battle group struck at the architect's mind. It was like pushing against a mountain at first. Then the mountain began to crack. The creature had never encountered prey that could fight back on the mental level. It did not know how to defend itself. The first architect died screaming in frequencies that could not be heard, only felt. Its impossible geometry collapsed, folding in on itself until it simply ceased to exist. Across the battlefield, the remaining 6 architects paused, genuinely shocked. One of us has fallen. This is impossible. Get used to it, Chen Wei said. The battle intensified. The architects stopped treating the fleet as food and started treating them as enemies. They combined their power, working together for the first time in eons. 2 more ships in the fleet were destroyed, their crews sacrificed to hold the line. Then 5 more. Then 20. But for every loss the fleet suffered, they learned more about how to hurt the architects. The mental link shared every discovery instantly. A weakness in how the creatures processed energy, a blind spot in their dimensional perception, patterns in their attacks that could be predicted and countered. The second architect fell, torn apart by concentrated fire from 100 ships working in perfect coordination. Then the third. By the time the fourth architect collapsed into nothingness, the remaining 3 had stopped advancing. They hung in space, their impossible shapes flickering with what might have been uncertainty. This cannot be. We are eternal. We are the end of all things. No, Captain Cole said. The Odyssey moved forward, placing itself directly in front of the 3 surviving architects. You are the end of nothing. You are just another obstacle. And humanity has spent its entire existence overcoming obstacles. The 3 architects gathered their remaining power for a final assault. Everything they had, focused on the Odyssey alone. If they could destroy that one ship, break the coordination the fleet had achieved, they might still salvage the harvest. Cole felt the attack building. He looked around his bridge at his crew. 3,000 men and women who had followed him into the void and come back changed. They had given up their normal lives, their normal existence, for this moment, for the chance to save their species and all the others. For Earth, he said quietly, for humanity, for everyone. The Odyssey met the attack head-on. Energy beyond measurement crashed against the transformed ship. For a moment, it seemed like even the Odyssey could not survive. Its dark hull flickered, its geometric patterns dimmed. Then it absorbed the attack entirely. Every bit of power the 3 architects had unleashed was swallowed by the ship and added to its own reserves. The Odyssey blazed with light so bright that sensors across the fleet overloaded trying to measure it. "Thank you for the gift," Cole said. "Let us return the favor." The Odyssey unleashed everything. Not just its own power, but all the power the architects had given it. The 3 remaining creatures tried to flee, tried to fold space and escape back to the intergalactic void. They were not fast enough. The light reached them. It tore through their dimensional defenses like they were not there. It found the core of each architect, the spark of stolen consciousness that powered their existence, and snuffed it out. 3 architects died together, their screams echoing across dimensions. Then silence. Chen Wei stared at her screens, not quite believing what she was seeing. The readings confirmed it. All 7 architects were gone, destroyed completely, leaving nothing behind but fading energy signatures. Across the fleet, cheers erupted. Valari, Kreth, humans, and 100 other species celebrated together. They had faced the ultimate predator of the galaxy, and they had won. The Odyssey drifted among the celebration, its hull dimmed but intact. Chen Wei opened a channel to Captain Cole. "Marcus," she said, using his first name for the first time. "Is it over?" Cole appeared on her screen. He looked tired, more tired than she had ever seen him, but he was smiling. "The architects are done," he confirmed. "Without them to maintain the cycle, the harvesters will go dormant again. The galaxy is safe." He paused. "For now, at least. There are always new threats, new challenges. But we can face them," Chen Wei said. "Together." Cole nodded. "Together. That was always the point. The intelligence beyond the void did not choose humanity because we were perfect. It chose us because we never give up. Because we always find a way to work together when it matters most, even with species that treated us poorly." He looked at something off-screen. The Valari High Counselor is asking to speak with me. I think he wants to formally apologize for the past 10 years. Chen Wei smiled. Make him work for your forgiveness. Oh, I intend to. The channel closed, and Chen Wei leaned back in her command chair. Around her, the fleet began the long process of recovering from the battle. Ships that could be repaired were towed to safety. The fallen were honored. Plans were made for the journey home. Ambassador Chen Wei, Admiral Chen Wei, hero of the Architect War, looked out at the stars and felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Peace. Humanity had started as the youngest species in the galaxy, the weakest, the most disrespected. Now they were something else. Leaders, protectors, the species that had faced extinction and refused to accept it. The galaxy was not perfect. There would be challenges ahead. Old prejudices would not disappear overnight. Some species would still resent humanity's new position, but the foundation had been laid for something better, something worth fighting for. Back on Earth, the news of the victory spread like wildfire. Cities erupted in celebration. People who had never met hugged in the streets. Parents held their children and promised them that the future would be bright. President Rivera stood on the steps of the United Terran government headquarters and addressed the world. Today, we are not just humanity, she said. We are part of something larger, a galactic family that stood together against the darkness. Our lost ship returned to us, transformed and powerful, and it used that power not to conquer, but to protect. That is who we are. That is who we have always been. She paused, looking up at the stars that were just becoming visible in the evening sky. To Captain Cole, to the crew of the Odyssey, and to every being who fought today, thank you. You have shown the galaxy what is possible when we choose to be better than our fears. And to whatever challenges lie ahead, know this: humanity will face them, we will overcome them, and we will do it together. Across the galaxy, the lights of civilization burned on. Valari, Kreth, Human, and hundreds of others, all looking up at the same stars, all knowing that they had been part of something historic. The Terran ship had returned after 10 years, evolved and ready to challenge the galaxy. What it had found was something even more powerful than the technology it brought back from the void. It had found the truth that had always been hiding in humanity's heart, that when they stood together, nothing in the universe could stand against them, and the galaxy, for the first time in millions of years, was truly free.